especially considering that it's weekend. But it shows your commitment to, actually learn about new technologies and everything. I'm Ikra Gilani from Atom Camp. Atom Camp, just quickly a little about Atom Camp, and then I can tell you in detail what Fahad does about him as well. So Atom Camp is a continuous learning platform. We're an edtech platform. We promote interdisciplinary education, continuous learning. We provide a lot of trainings, boot camps, courses in data science, in data engineering, AI. We're trying to upskill workforce in Pakistan and have more data-driven organizations, individuals to increase productivity and also work on soft skills, communication skills, and other stuff, career coaching that is very, very important for today's youth, especially in Pakistan. And we're trying to bring in more opportunities for within Pakistan, from outside of Pakistan as well. Today, we're very excited to have an interesting conversation with Fahad. Fahad does a lot of things, so I hope I don't miss out on anything. And also, I share what he does correctly, but then also Fahad can tell us in detail in case I miss out on anything. Mainly, he's an ML engineer at Derq. That's a Dubai-based company, I'm sure, I think. And he has more than 4 years of experience in deep learning. Very interestingly, has masters. He's actually currently doing his masters right now from Georgia Institute of Technology in computer science. He has also is also a graduate from FAST as well, and works in Fahad works. He does a lot of things and is an ML engineer as well. So we'll let Fahad tell us in detail what are the things in case I've missed out on any cool things that he does. He can tell us about us about.
Thank you, Ikram. I think you've done a fairly good job in representing what I do. So, like Ikra said, I work as a machine learning engineer at Derq, and alongside that, I am pursuing my master's degree at Georgia Tech within computer science. So, alongside that, of course, within Derq, the focus is on computer vision. So, I sort of, at this point, I've specialized within computer vision, or at least I'm getting closer to specializing within computer vision. But prior to this, I worked at Teradata as a data scientist, and there you sort of got to work on all sorts of things. So it's a heterogeneous sort of structure that they have. At one point, you'll be working on deep learning, then at another point, you might be doing some sort of analytics and pushing things onto a dashboard. So lots of, I guess, a wide variety of experience, but slowly but surely, I'm sort of targeting a specific domain, which is in my case computer vision.
Thank you, Fahad, for telling us. I think Tear Data मैंने miss कर दिया था. You've also worked for RBSoft as well as a software
Yeah.
engineer. So that too, mashallah, you've done a lot of things and continue to do so. The agenda today is to talk about, mainly AI and the opportunities it presents, and also in detail that what is ML, what are the things that you guys need to know. Obviously, there's Google, there's ChatGPT, Bard, Bing. You can obviously ask these questions there as well, but I think nobody can tell us better than someone who's already working in the field, has a lot of experience, and see how is tech evolving every day at such rapid pace. So Fahad, before we go into more technical details of it, please tell us a little about what inspired you to start in tech, and जब आप 4 साल पहले graduate हुए थे या जब आपने graduation start किया था, तो आपका क्या, what was your thought process like? और उस वक्त tech में कितनी advancement हो रही थी और अब कितनी हो गई है? So just a little about.
Yeah, so I would actually go even before the 4 years since I've graduated. I'd go as far as the time I started my bachelor's degree within computer science at FAST Islamabad. उस वक्त by no means was the IT industry blooming as it is right now. And as far as AI, machine learning, data science is concerned, it was way lagging behind all of the other sort of fields within IT. So at the time when I sort of decided to pursue a bachelor's degree in computer science, it was almost entirely based upon the fact that I wanted to solve problems. So within the curriculum that I had prior to my bachelor's degree, so I did my O levels and A levels, and had a focus within computer science. So during that period, I sort of it I sort of developed a spark within me to try to solve problems using specifically code. So that sort of started my, or rather piqued my interest within computer science, and I saw computer science as the natural sort of extension to what I had already learned uh, at basically within my school and within my college.
Thank you so much, Fahad, for telling us about that. Obviously, हम थोड़ा सा आपकी role के बारे में भी बात करेंगे. What do you do? What does your day look like? But before that, please tell us your audience, from someone who works in the field and has like a very extensive experience as well,
Yes.
the what skills and background is necessary for someone to pursue a career in ML and let's say computer vision. अगर हम दो specifically चीजों के बारे में बात.
Sure. So I'll try to start off with machine learning, since I would argue, although there are some pure computer vision experts, but I would argue that computer vision is at least now a subdomain of machine learning. So within machine learning, I would say that there are three or four domains, or rather fields, that are essential for you to be able to become an expert, or at least come close to sort of uh, making substantial progress, and contributing substantially within the domain of machine learning. I'll start off with linear algebra. So that is, in my opinion, the most important thing when it comes to machine learning: the ability to sort of visualize things, at least within your mind, how you have different planes, how they scale, etc. Apart from that, I'd say beyond just knowing how linear algebra can sort of contribute and sort of make use of the data you have, you could also add into the fact that or rather, you can also add in the field of probability and statistics. So probability and statistics again deals with essentially data, and the ability to sort of quantify the uncertainty that you have with your data, and how you can make decisions based on the uncertainty. So that's what probability and statistics is essentially about. And finally, I'd say calculus. So that is another math field. So essentially, being able to sort of have a conceptual understanding of what derivatives are, how they can be used to minimize a particular function, and in all honesty, that's as far as you need to go in terms of calculus. Of course, there's integration, there's partial differentiation, etc., all of those things and all of those cool things. But as far as machine learning is concerned, if you have an idea of how derivatives work, if you have an idea of how partial derivatives are calculated, you will do well within machine learning. Now, moving on to computer vision. So I've talked about machine learning, and everything that I've just talked about will apply to computer vision as well, specifically uh, the recent trends of computer vision. So at this point, देख सकते हैं कि deep learning is taking over everything, specifically computer vision and NLP and even speech processing to some extent. So because of these reasons, you will see a huge overlap between what is necessary to become a machine learning engineer and what is necessary to become a computer vision engineer, so to speak. But there are some things जो कि मुझे लगता है कि although it will get you far, but if you don't have these things, it won't get you to sort of this the it won't get you into the sort of challenging domains that exist within computer vision. So the two things that I think are important is being able to understand the camera model that we have. So essentially, you might remember from your physics class in high school, you had an optical lens, and you saw different lines converging to a particular point, and that point was called the focal length. So having an understanding of what a camera represents and what the camera model represents can be very helpful in solving computer vision tasks, because at the end of the day, you are using cameras. So definitely having an understanding of the camera model, and specifically having the understanding of the underlying mathematics, so specifically trigonometry, specifically spherical geometry, would come in really handy when it comes to computer vision.
Thank you so much for talking about that in such great detail. I think काफी आपने चीजों को break down कर दिया and gives a clear idea of what are the essential skills that are necessary for it. Could you
Uh-huh.
also talk about a little about the background that is also necessary for you to sort of break into it? अगर engineering background होना जरूरी
Yeah.
है, bachelor's में क्या पढ़ा, अगर आपने पढ़ा हुआ है तो
Mm-hmm.
आप कर सकते हैं, पढ़ना क्या चाहिए, तो उसके ऊपर अगर थोड़ी सी बात.
See. I think in terms of background, if you have it went through your mathematics curriculum till high school. So when I say high school, I'm essentially talking about college, so to speak. So beyond FSC and A levels, if you've done your mathematics till that point, then honestly, it's just about finding the right resources and putting in the effort. So if you had put in the effort, if you have that background knowledge, then I think it's certainly not impossible for you to break into the field and do well in it.
Thank you so much for talking about that too. I think बहुत ज़्यादा लोग आपको डराते भी हैं कि oh you need this sort of इतनी skills आपको skill set चाहिए ये background चाहिए certain
Uh-huh.
background के अगर आप अंदर हैं तो तभी आप कर सकते हैं. So I
Yeah.
think it's very relieving to hear from someone कि अगर आपका mathematics में background है तो आप कर
Mm-hmm.
सकते हैं just within a useful skill set as well.
Yeah.
Well, just आपने फहद बात भी की कि when you started तो tech was in no means was blooming as that. Like now
Yeah.
it is evolving at such a
Mm-hmm.
rapid pace. तो
Yes.
आप थोड़ा सा बताएं कि आप what's your role like at Derq and what is like a usual day for you look like now that you're right now you're also working remotely as well. So what are
Yeah.
your tasks, day-to-day tasks उसके बारे में अगर थोड़ी सी just to give our audience an idea
Mm-hmm.
कि ML
Sure.
engineers करते क्या हैं?
Uh-huh. मैं एक वैसे डिस्टिंक्शन देना चाहूँगा इससे पहले कि मैं आई go through what I do. If you talk about big corporations, so the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, the machine learning engineers there are typically called software engineers in machine learning, and they do different tasks. So their sort of role is more tailored towards deploying the machine learning models and building the infrastructure around the models. My role is essentially, if I talk in Meta and Google terms, तो मेरी role जो होगी वो it's more close to an applied scientist. So essentially, a lot of my time is spent doing research and trying to come up with innovative solutions to solve the very unique problems we have at Derq. Specifically, if I talk about the problems that we do encounter on a day-to-day basis, it's object detection. So detecting objects within a camera frame, tracking those objects. So this could be in a single camera setting. So if you only have a single camera, you're tracking uh, objects or in our case road users within the frame. And you could also have a multi-camera setting, in which case you'd have multiple cameras and you'll be using all of those cameras to track the person, the object, whatever, across this whole area that is spanned by different cameras. Finally, so I also touched upon the importance of geometry and the importance of trigonometry. So I'm also working on camera calibration, and camera calibration is essentially 70-80% geometry, if not more. And having a good grasp of geometry really helps. And I'm still going back to my O levels or A levels curriculum just to get a better idea of what exactly the numbers represented.
Thank you so much for talking about that. I think this makes it more exciting for people who are looking to pursue a career in ML engineering or,
Mm-hmm.
subfields of it. So I think उनके लिए आपने काफी exciting बना दिया. थोड़ा
Uh-huh.
और भी exciting बनाएंगे. We'll also talk in detail कि आपने क्या road map follow किया था. Job, obviously internationally
Mm-hmm.
हासिल करना, secure करना इतना easy भी नहीं होता. तो आपने अपने role के बारे में तो बात की थी, but please also talk about technical skills, जिनके ऊपर आपको डे टू डे बहुत essential है और आपको काम भी करना पड़ता है. And also talk
Mm-hmm.
about in regards to AI. Now
Yeah.
that AI has evolved to an extent और बहुत सारी आपको opportunities provide करता है, chat
Mm-hmm.
GPT आ गया है
Yeah.
और tools हैं जिनको आप use कर सकते हैं. So do you feel like कि आपकी जिंदगी आसान हुई है AI के आने के बाद मुश्किल हुई है? Like how do you talk about that?
Okay, so I'll start off by addressing ChatGPT. So it has definitely helped. There's no doubt about it. Being able to sort of refer to ChatGPT on a daily basis, and essentially it has, for me at least, replaced Google. So I don't go to Google to gain knowledge. I go to ChatGPT. Of course, once ChatGPT narrows down to a specific sort of field, I can then go back to Google and sort of authenticate whatever ChatGPT relates, since it is known to hallucinate. However, along with the benefits that come from ChatGPT, there's also this looming sort of dragon behind us, which essentially is scaring us because we feel that at some point we will be replaced by all of these chatbots and all of these AI tools. One thing that I would recommend to anyone that sort of feels that way is try to specialize within your domain and try to sort of go beyond what you would find in textbooks and sort of look towards problems that are perhaps not as easily solvable uh, in terms of just if you read a book or if you have a general understanding of how things work. You don't look for sort of those sort of problems. Look for problems that are much more complex, and of course it's easier said than done, and of course it's easier said than done to be able to solve those problems. But I think we should all be at this point looking for areas where we see ChatGPT lagging behind. Or okay, I'm singling out ChatGPT, but essentially all of the AI tools and chatbots lagging behind. In terms of skills, so the second question, or actually the first question that you asked, uh, I think there, in my sort of day-to-day routine, I would say there are three things that I leverage the most. So the first is linear algebra in general. So being having a good understanding of the four fundamental subspaces, having a good understanding of how projection works, having a good understanding of how changing basis, so going from one basis to another basis. These sort of things come in really handy when you're dealing with cameras and camera calibration. The second thing, it probably sounds like a broken record at this point, but trigonometry again comes in really handy when I'm doing my day-to-day tasks. Finally, it would be amiss to not mention the coding sort of language, the programming languages, and the frameworks within those programming languages that are used. So in my case, I primarily rely on Python as a programming language, specifically because it's very easy to iterate. Being in a sort of R&D position, it's very easy to iterate different sort of ideas and sort of quickly converge towards something that actually works. And Python is ideal for that because it not only provides the sort of uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of a quick and dirty solution, or rather the ability to develop a quick and dirty solution, but it also provides all of these complex libraries such as NumPy and OpenCV that you can use to build out your solution.
Thank you so much, Fahad, for talking about that. Follow-up question मेरा यही होगा कि आपने बहुत emphasize किया है कि skills ही important है. Maths में
Mm-hmm.
आपका background अच्छा होना, अच्छा grasp होना भी important है.
Yeah.
But at the same time, please talk about because we don't really जिस तरह आपने ये बात भी की है कि not just focus on what textbooks are teaching you. आप उसको
Yeah.
थोड़ा अपना horizon expand भी करें and go out of what's ordinary and think out of the box as well.
Yes.
तो आई थिंक हम एक चीज को बहुत अंडरमाइन करते हैं while we think जब हम टेक्निकल स्किल्स की बात कर रहे होते हैं तो हम सॉफ्ट स्किल्स के ऊपर इतना बात नहीं
Mm-hmm.
करते एंड वी
Yeah.
डोंट हमें इतना रियलाइज भी नहीं होता कि अगर कोई
Uh-huh.
इंजीनियर है या किसी का बहुत स्पेसिफिक टेक रिलेटेड रोल है तो
Mm-hmm.
उनको सॉफ्ट स्किल्स की कितनी जरूरत होती है तो प्लीज टॉक
Yes.
अबाउट हाउ do that complement your
Of course.
work and what you do at your workplace and do you think that sets you apart from other people who are let's say unfortunately not as good as you are at them तो प्लीज अगर आप थोड़ा उस पर गाइड
सो एक चीज़ जो मुझे लगता है हम स्टेम मेजर्स में बहुत कॉमन है, वो ये है कि हमें आई गेस 4 साल जब हम एक रिग्रेस उससे गुजरते हैं एंड we're sort of competing with everyone around us, हमारे अंदर एक sort of एक वो develop हो जाती है insecurity that we shouldn't share knowledge or we shouldn't help the people around me, the people around us. And I think that sort of contributes to why we feel the sort of irrelevance of developing your soft skills. But in terms of the industry, I think it's the complete opposite. So you should be sharing knowledge. You should be articulating everything you've found. If you're doing sort of research, everything you've found, you should be able to articulate the solution that you have. You should be able to articulate the problems that you're facing. So maybe someone else has a solution to the problem that you're facing. So being able to communicate helps a lot when you're sort of working within the industry. And finally, one thing I would have to touch upon as well is you're not going to stay an engineer for the rest of your life, or you shouldn't want to stay an engineer for the rest of your life. You should move on to team lead roles or senior roles, or maybe even becoming a manager at some point. और उसके लिए I think it's essentially all communication. Like 70-80% of what you do will be communicating with your subordinates, उनसे बात करना, उनकी problem समझना, उनकी day-to-day routine को समझना, or all of those things. And soft skills are, I think, in the industry just as important, if not more important, especially as you progress in your career.
Thank you so much for saying that. I think I've had the pleasure of speaking to a lot of people who are working internationally at big companies like you've mentioned Google, and that's what they've also said that what sets Pakistani apart from other, and the very famous word is that they're really good how they communicate, and
Mm-hmm.
they're also very good employees as well. So I think I take a lot of pride in that
Mm-hmm.
people are setting such standards over there.
Yeah.
बिल्डिंग ऑन टू दैट आपने ये भी कहा कि इट्स यू शुडंट स्टे और आप एक ही आपका गोल नहीं होना चाहिए दैट यू स्टार्ट फ्रॉम देयर एंड यू
Mm.
ऑलवेज स्टे देयर
Yeah.
मे बी करियर प्रोग्रेशन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है तो आपकी
Of
भी
course.
करियर प्रोग्रेशन इस तरह बहुत हुई है
Mm-hmm.
यू स्टार्टेड डेटा साइंटिस्ट से आपने एज एन एमएल इंजीनियर हाउ हैव यू सॉर्ट ऑफ प्रोग्रेस्ड कोई
Okay.
चैलेंजेस अगर आए अगर उनके बारे में आप बात करना चाहें
Sure. So I would start with a caveat that not every data science position is like what I experienced at Teradata. At Teradata, it was mainly heterogeneous projects, like I talked about before. So one day you're working on training a deep learning model. The next day, maybe you're building an analytical data set that might be used by another data scientist to build a machine learning model. Another day, you might be working on building a dashboard that provides analytics. Some days, you're working on, I don't know, SQL generation and querying data from a database. So you sort of had different tasks, and essentially your sort of knowledge and the growth that you were having, it was very spread out. So you'd cover a breadth of different things, but you don't necessarily specialize because the nature of projects that we had at Teradata, they lasted like 2-3 months normally. So the nature of those projects meant that you never truly went deep into what you were doing. Now, in contrast, I now work at an ITS startup, and startups in general, they are tuned towards products and they're tuned towards going as deep as you possibly can within the domain. So there was a huge switch of emphasis. So going from a data scientist that wanted to cover everything, wanted to know everything, to a machine learning engineer that is trying to specialize within computer vision. So the difference was quite significant, and what really helped me was again just blocking all of the different thoughts that I had and sitting down and spending time in front of a textbook, in front of a blog, in front of a video, and just consuming as much knowledge about computer vision as I could.
Thank you so much. I think that's very interesting. The way you have explained it, I think also helps our audience understand it as well. I
Mm-hmm.
take, I think हमारे आप जिस तरह बात करें, so the Atom Camp also take a lot of pride in this that we also promote interdisciplinary, education,
Mm-hmm.
this culture of continuous learning, जहाँ
Yeah.
पे you shouldn't be rigid and you shouldn't be just stuck at one thing.
Yes.
पाकिस्तान में एक बहुत बड़ा आपके लिए फैक्टर मोटिवेटिंग फैक्टर ये भी होता है कि आपको ज्यादा अच्छी जगह पे जॉब करनी है आपको ज्यादा
Uh-huh.
बेहतर पैसे कमाने हैं एंड आई थिंक फेयरली दैट्स अ वेरी फेयर एक्सपेक्टेशन फॉर एनीवन टू अर्न बेटर दिस
Mm-hmm.
ब्रिंग्स मी टू माय नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन एक्चुअली क्योंकि आपकी रिमोट जॉब भी है एंड यू वर्क रिमोटली so
Yeah.
please talk about that work-life balance that you follow and do
Mm-hmm.
you think having you work as an ML engineer तो आप अगर
जी.
Derq पे काम करते हैं तो आपको help sort of करता है कि now do you have that work-life balance liberty जहाँ पे आप थोड़े टाइम machines के
Mm-hmm.
बगैर भी गुजार सकते हैं and you are not always working and not always just sitting in front of a screen आपकी एक
Uh-huh.
अलग life भी है and you have hobbies that you would like to go
Yeah.
back to at some point तो अगर उसके
Yes.
ऊपर just to make it more exciting for the audience अगर आप उसके बारे में बात करें
Okay. मैं थोड़ी सी controversial बात करूँगा, but I hope I get the message across. So, to some extent, you not having a work-life balance is your own fault. And what I mean by that is, अच्छा अब मैं अपनी sort of एक personal anecdote भी दे देता हूँ. So I spent some time in Germany while pursuing a master's degree, which I later discontinued. But I spent some time in Germany while pursuing a master's degree. I also was employed as a part-time data analyst at a company. And my lead there, he had a pretty interesting way of approaching his work. So essentially, he'd come to the office at, let's say, 8:30 a.m. or maybe even 8 a.m. And what he did was he put his phone on silent and he placed it at least beyond an arm's reach from himself. और इससे ये होता था कि he could concentrate solely on the work that he did. And from, let's say, if he starts at 8 a.m. Until 12 p.m., all he's doing is working. Then he takes a break for an hour or whatever to have lunch, and comes back, spends another 3 or 4 hours on his work. By let's say when the clock strikes 5, he's done with his work and he goes home. Between 5 p.m. and, let's say, if he sleeps at 12 p.m. 12 a.m. He has 7 hours to do anything he wants. So essentially, being able to sort of segregate your work from your life and having these sort of, to some extent, strict schedules do work in your favor. Being able to spread out, not spread out, sorry, the opposite of spreading out, being able to sort of compartmentalize all of your work, it really helps provide you with the work-life balance that you're aiming for. But I try to do the same. I don't always succeed because of the intrinsic Pakistani inside me. It's not always easy to sort of do what I just preached, but generally I try to follow the same routine where I start early in the morning and end sometime in the evening, and then it's just concentrating or so, just sort of indulging myself within my family and just having a good time with my family.
Thank you so much. I think that's also very important to have that work-life balance क्योंकि
Mm-hmm.
जब आप इतना आपको एक job बहुत obviously the work that you do it also requires you to be very productive and be very
Mm-hmm.
good at what you do.
Yeah.
और उसके लिए करने के लिए it's very important to take some time off of that thing as well and do other
Yes.
things and then come back to it later. So I think वो
Uh-huh.
आपकी favor में ही बात करती है and like you said. But also I would like to mention one thing over here is कि पाकिस्तान में अगर आप जॉब कर रहे हैं तो because अनफॉर्चुनेटली हमने अभी इतना
Mm-hmm.
वॉल्व नहीं किया हमारा वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस वाला जरा कॉन्सेप्ट इधर इतना एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता
Yeah.
बट अगैन अगर वो आप जिस तरह हमने इतनी सारी चीजें बता दी अगर उनको फॉलो करें कंटिन्यूअसली लर्न करें स्किल सेट इंप्रूव करें तो ऑब्वियसली वो भी इंटरनेशनली भी काम कर सकते हैं रिमोट में भी जहाँ पे देन दे हैव दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी एंड ऑल्सो प्रिविलेज आई वुड से कि जहाँ पे
Mm-hmm.
वो अपने आप को जरा जॉब से अलग भी रह के अपने और चीजें भी कर सकते हैं ड्यूरिंग
Yeah.
देयर डे टू डे लाइफ अब आई
Mm-hmm.
थिंक क्योंकि हमने इतना एक्साइटिंग बना ही दिया है आपकी जर्नी के बारे में हम बहुत सारी बात करते जा रहे हैं बट आई थिंक ऑब्वियसली देयर मस्ट हैव बीन अ लॉट ऑफ चैलेंजेस एंड इट वाजंट एन इजी रोड आप ऑब्वियसली
Mm-hmm.
बहुत सारे रोड बम्प्स भी आते हैं कहने में आसान लगता है कि someone has like 4 or 5 years of experience now working remotely but again there's like a whole journey behind it so please
Mm-hmm.
guide your audience a little about it कि जब आपने start किया था now that you're here तो
Yeah.
आपने कितने कोई इंटरव्यू जॉब्स के लिए
Mm-hmm.
अप्लाई किया था कितने इंटरव्यू से रिजेक्शन आई थी एंड देन इवेंचुअली अब आप इधर हैं जहाँ पे आप जॉब करना चाहते थे तो जस्ट अ लिटिल अबाउट दैट व्हाट वाज
Mm-hmm.
दैट रोड पाथ दैट यू फॉलोड
Right. The general advice I'd give in terms of applying for jobs, just apply as many as you can to. Don't really think about if you meet all of the requirements. Bas apply kar do, and if it's meant for you, it'll happen. My case is a bit unique. I have applied to a lot of jobs, but typically, I mean, prior to Derq, of course, I had applied to a lot of jobs. But typically, what happened was, I don't know if पता नहीं किस तरह होता था लेकिन any job that I wouldn't eventually get, I get rejected even before the first round. So I never even got the first interview. So I had this sort of unique experience where essentially if I get to the first stage, then I do eventually get a job offer. So but it doesn't always happen. And you have sort of setbacks along the way. You might pass the first round, you might pass the second round, you might fail the third, etc., etc. The general advice I'd give, so and especially if with regards to machine learning, would be to sort of focus, although it might not seem as obvious, but try to focus more on problem solving, because that is where you sort of you get to differentiate yourself from other candidates. Secondly, I'd say having a good knowledge of machine learning techniques and algorithms, etc. And not too deep. You don't need to go too deep for interviews. They typically don't have the time to sort of dive deep into this, different techniques. But just generally having an understanding of what is works better here, what works better there, etc. Um, yeah, and finally, of course, if we are talking about machine learning, then there's also system design. So having an understanding of how systems operate, how different modules exist, and how they interact with one another, that really helps in being able to sort of um, come up with a system that can work and come up with a system that can solve all of the problems that the company might face.
Thank you so much. I think that's also again very helpful and help us understand कि exactly क्या process होता है. Job पहले I think हमें cover letter लिखना, resume को थोड़ा
Mm-hmm.
हर different job के लिए alter करना मुश्किल होता था. But now technology इतनी evolve हो गई है. There are a lot of tools that you can use. AI
Yes.
के obviously आने के बाद से तो आप like 50 jobs में भी एक दिन में apply कर सकते हैं आप.
Mm-hmm.
लेकिन
Exactly.
smartly obviously please use AI as a tool. आप उसको as a help use करें, but don't like
Uh-huh.
just copy
Definitely.
paste and just put it over there. So I think that's very important. It's very smart to use technology as well. My next question is actually related to that, but it's a two-part question. जिस तरह आपने बात की कि obviously हमने technical skills, soft skills, इसका एक पूरा clear picture अपनी audience को दे दिया. But building on to that, would you think like for a very technical role, obviously ML में जब आपका interview भी होता है या जो आपकी resume आपको देनी होती है, तो आपको you have to be very mindful about certain things. तो अगर आप प्लीज इसके बारे में थोड़ी बात करें कि वाटर रेज्यूमे में क्या चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट हैं, पोर्टफोलियो
Mm-hmm.
के बारे में अगर हम बात करें, एंड देन ऑल्सो अगर टेक्निकल इंटरव्यू है तो उसको प्रिपेयर करने के लिए क्या चीजें हैं जो इम्पोर्टेंट है, तो अगर
Yes.
आप इसके बारे में थोड़ी.
So again, I'll answer as a machine learning engineer. So in terms of your resume, there is a huge focus on being able to articulate uh, the improvement that you brought to a particular product, or the improvement that you brought to a particular, let's say, engagement. So they typically, if there's a huge emphasis on being able to quantify what you did and how it was able to sort of improve performance. So, if, for example, if I talk about a deep learning model that you developed, how did it fare with, let's say, a baseline, or how did it fare with the prior model that existed? So, being able to quantify these things and being able to articulate this quantification is integral to having sort of a CV that shines through the rest. Apart from that, when it comes to, let's say, the portfolio side of things, or perhaps showcasing what you've done, I think a GitHub repository does a very good job. And this is something that anyone can work on, or rather, this is something that anyone can do. You can have an open source project on the side and try to showcase your abilities. So you're not restricted to whatever's on your resume. You can actually show this is what I built, this is how it works, and these are the things that I did to sort of accomplish my specific goal. So this was, I think I missed something that you also asked. Could you repeat that?
इंटरव्यू
Yeah,
लाइक
interview.
आपके अगर टेक्निकल इंटरव्यू में
Mm-hmm.
क्या क्वेश्चंस प्रिपेयर करने चाहिए बिफोर.
Yeah. So interview again, I did go over it a bit, but I'll get into a bit more detail. So typically, you'd have 3 to 4 interviews within a machine learning hiring. The first would generally be a technical interview, and here in the technical interview, the emphasis is on knowing machine learning models and having an understanding of how they work and what different use cases they can solve. Again, like I said, you do not need to worry about the about going into the depth of things. So having a general understanding of how an algorithm works, where it can be used, comes in really handy and is honestly sufficient to do well in a technical interview. Some books that I would suggest. So there's an introduction to statistical learning. This is a book that's, I guess, 400, 500 pages long. It's very easy to read. It doesn't have a lot of math being covered. And it does a very good job in being able to relay all of the different techniques and algorithms that are still in use in the industry and have shown through the test of time that they can sort of fulfill different tasks. Um, yeah, so the someone's asking about the name of the book. So the name of the book is Introduction to Statistical Learning. So it's freely available. You could just search on Google and you'll find the website. Secondly, so I mentioned the technical interview, which is typically the first round. The second round would generally be the coding interview. And here again, lead code is your best friend. So just going through lead code and solving as many problems as you can will be the best way to prepare for a coding interview. Um, Personally, I don't like the fact that this hack exists. So essentially, at some point, if you do enough problems, you realize how problems are solved using different sort of data structures. Personally, I prefer if a person comes in and has no idea what type of question can be asked and then tries to solve it. And that typically gives you a better idea of how confident the candidate is about their abilities and also gives you a good idea of how well they perform under pressure. Finally, again, systems design, something that is crucial when it comes to machine learning engineering, specifically the first category that I talked about at the start. So basically, if you're working in a big tech company such as Facebook or Google, etc., you will typically be asked to do a systems design interview. And in that systems design interview, they're trying to gauge how well you can build systems, since your primary task there will be to build systems. So in that case, I would recommend just going through different YouTube videos and getting an idea of how different engineers try to come up with systems that could be used by the users as well as the company itself.
Thank you so much, Fahad. I think इस आपने काफी एक easy breakdown कर दिया for people to understand, or if anyone's looking to prepare for it, apply for it, so they can obviously look into it और उनकी काफी help हो जाएगी. मेरा next question भी obviously follow up question है related to that कि जिस तरह आपने एक डिटेल में इन डेप्थ बात की है, स्किल्स की बात की है, कंटिन्यूअस लर्निंग की बात की है, आपने बताया कि इंटरव्यू में चीजें किस तरह आपको फेस करनी
जी.
है, रेज्यूमे, पोर्टफोलियो, एवरीथिंग आई थिंक वी हैव कवर्ड सो फार. बट हाउ डू यू थिंक कि आपको लगता है कि रिसोर्सेज कोई जिनको ऑडियंस कैन गो टू एंड रेफर टू, लाइक यूट्यूब ऑब्वियसली इज देयर, गूगल इज देयर, बट देन आपको लगता है कि कोई ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज वगैरह या कोई ऑनलाइन इस तरह की रिसोर्सेज अवेलेबल हैं for our audience they can go to and perhaps learn from them? कोई communities इस तरह की available हैं for people to
Yes.
like have that sense of community, camaraderie? तो अगर आप उसके ऊपर थोड़ी सी बात करें.
Okay. I think in terms of certifications and online courses, there are some very good ones. Specifically, if I talk about Coursera, then you have the deeplearning.ai organization, which regularly releases new courses that sort of cater to the industry needs for the time being. So I definitely recommend going through different specializations within the deep learning AI organization. So that would include the machine learning specialization, the very popular machine learning specialization. Then you could go for the deep learning specialization, which is also offered by deeplearning.ai. Beyond that, I think at that point you do know how different techniques work and how different sort of algorithms work. Beyond that, you can then look into sort of building infrastructures such as going through an ML ops, an ML ops specialization would give you a better understanding of how things come together within an ecosystem. Another would be similar to that. It's a Stanford course. I can't remember the name exactly, but essentially it covers systems design within machine learning. So that's another amazing course to sort of refer to. Of course, you don't get a certification, but the knowledge that you will learn through that course will be invaluable.
Thank you so much. I think that's also very important. Resources available to बहुत सारे होते हैं. It's just that you need to make a conscious effort
Yes.
to do it. But then again, जब if I talk about when I graduated 3-4 साल पहले, और या उस वक्त इतनी ज़्यादा क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी इवॉल्व नहीं हुई थी, आई थिंक चैट जीपीटी का भी नहीं पता था. So now that this landscape is evolving at a very rapid pace, there are a lot of opportunities that you can look
Yes.
into, that you can avail as well. But do you think it also, like, now that technology has evolved, like just आपको LinkedIn पे we searched, a
Mhm.
certain subject, and we could find like number of people we could reach out to,
Yeah.
connect with, and then invite to have a conversation with us who are already working in the field. And that's how
Mhm.
we reached out to you as well. तो आपको लगता है कि mentorship की भी कोई importance होती है if you want to have like sort of a career progression या आप start करें हैं तो would is it worth reaching out to people who are already in the field, can guide you, can perhaps add their experiences to your life as well, and can give you a better and a clearer understanding? And if yes, then what are the things that you should be really mindful about? Like आप किसी को मैसेज करके ये नहीं पूछ सकते कि आपकी एज ए ML इंजीनियर सैलरी कितनी है या आप क्या करते हैं. I think these
Uh-huh.
are the questions that they cannot really help you with, and it's not fair
Yes.
to ask anyone that. So please, if you can talk about that a little.
Yeah. So, पहली बात, I would definitely not recommend just randomly pinging people on LinkedIn. Do sort of, I'd start by doing your due diligence. So just don't expect that everything will be handed to you. Try to do your own research. Try to use Google. I mean, Google's your best friend, and now ChatGPT is an even better friend. So you could use those two to get a better understanding of the field and get a better understanding of what you need to know, etc., etc. Of course, at some point you do need mentorship. I mean, there's no denying it. I work at Derq, but I have two or three senior data scientists that sorry, not senior data scientists, senior research scientists that I continuously refer to if I have some issues. And mentors are essential to your growth and being able to sort of think beyond the realms that you operate within. Again, having said that, again, do your due diligence. Don't just go directly to someone and ask for mentorship. Try to become as self-sufficient as you can, and then once you reach a point where you feel that self-learning won't be enough or self-learning won't get you to that next step, then you may refer to a mentor. In terms of how to sort of find mentors, well, I was fortunate enough to find mentors within the companies that I've worked for. So at Teradata, I had different senior data scientists, principal data scientists that I could refer to. At Derq, I have research scientists. So I've been fortunate in that regards. But I'd say look for different programs. So I guess Atom Camp is a very good example of where you do have boot camps and you have sort of lecturers and teachers that do have a wide variety of experience within the industry. Or you could look at online programs as well. So Udacity provides that sort of communication channel between a mentor and a student. So look for programs like these, but yeah, focus on your self-studying first.
Thank you so much. I think you also have to be very mindful of other people's time, and this is one thing that's very telling of you as well. क्योंकि अगर आप
Mhm.
किसी से जाके ये पूछेंगे कि ML इंजीनियरिंग क्या होती है, डेटा इंजीनियरिंग क्या होती है, तो ये तो obviously nobody is going to tell you,
Mhm.
because आप तो ये चैट GPT से भी पूछ सकते हैं और आप गूगल से
Yes.
भी पूछ सकते हैं. So these are
Yeah.
not the questions that you should ask, या फिर किसी
Yes.
से ये जाके directly कि आपकी सैलरी कितनी है. आप maybe perhaps like a better question would be, what is the average salary of someone
Uh-huh.
working at,
Yeah.
internationally as a data engineer, as
Yeah.
AI engineer or ML engineer, तो आप उनसे
Mhm.
पूछ सकते हैं about like the average salary, but not their salary, because that's not
Yeah.
a fair question to ask anyone. आपको किसी से कभी भी ये नहीं पूछना चाहिए. And
Mhm.
this is also some like आपकी within your family, I don't think उनसे भी वैसे ये पूछना चाहिए, but
Yeah.
हम as a देसी family थोड़ी boundaries हमारी blur होती रहती हैं. So
Mhm.
I'm not really going to blame anyone for that. Like my last question would be, I think we're coming back to your career a lot, because then we're
Mhm.
trying to inspire people.
Yeah.
ताकि you're already there, and some people might be just be starting, and some people might be stuck, तो आप उनको inspire कर सकते हैं
Uh-huh.
by being here today, and mentor करके थोड़ा अपनी journey के बारे में बात करके.
Yeah.
तो आप ये बताएं कि now that just on concluding note, that now AI has evolved so much, बहुत advancement आ गई technology में. So, how do you stay updated with the latest trends and technologies? And do you feel like आपको constantly भी ज़रूरत होती है to evolve, constantly learn, constantly refer back to the books, resources? आपने
Yeah.
जिस तरह community की बात की, it's important to have a community. आप sense of community also help a lot of people to learn. And
Mhm.
you were fortunate enough to find those people within, the network or companies you've worked
Yeah.
for. So, आप उसके ऊपर किस तरह, how do you stay updated? And do
Mhm.
you also feel at times, I think हमारे लिए बहुत validating होगा अगर आप ये कहेंगे कि as someone who's already an ML engineer, और वो भी कभी कभार stuck feel करते हैं just because technology बहुत advanced हो गई है.
Yeah, 100%. कोई शक नहीं है इसमें कि we all go through that sort of phase where we feel कि we're experiencing information overload. So essentially कि आपको इतनी ज़्यादा information दी जा रही है कि आप process कर ही नहीं सकते. And I feel the same. And this is probably a global phenomenon because especially when it comes to AI and machine learning, you're getting new research papers published every day, and all of them do provide something useful. Uh, Obviously, you cannot keep up with all of them. Typically, what I suggest, and this is something that I do myself, is I try to focus on the foundations. So I mentioned the book Introduction to Statistical Learning. I mentioned different sort of courses and specializations as well. They give you a strong foundation to work with. And beyond that, of course, there have been advancements, and there are continuously being advancements, but you don't necessarily need to keep up with everything. So there's this fear of missing out, FOMO, as we all call it. But we need to be cognizant of where we are and what's truly important for us to reach the next step. And at times, yeah, you need to sort of block things out as well and just concentrate on what you have in front of you.
आई थिंक अभी तक आपने काफी सारी बहुत यूजफुल टिप्स शेयर की हैं सो फार एंड आफ्टर लाइक आपकी हर स्टेटमेंट के अगर हम वी थिंक अबाउट इट तो एंड पे कोई सबके लिए सजेशन या हेल्पफुल एडवाइस ही है इफ आई एम परसीविंग इट लाइक दैट मैंने खुद बहुत इन लाइक बहुत छोटे से टाइम ऑब्वियसली 1 hour इज नॉट इनफ to cover everything, but I think I've personally learned a lot from you. आपने बहुत सारी advices तो दे दी हैं, but just to conclude and give it our audience जिन्होंने अभी हमें join किया है, जो बाद में YouTube पे भी देखेंगे, आपने अपने experience से so far क्या learn किया और if you were to give one advice to people, to students specifically who are learning right now and feeling like उनको बहुत डर लग रहा है कि अब बहुत AI आके तो replace हो जाएंगे, jobs redundant हो जाएंगी, हमारी जरूरत नहीं है, अब हमें और से और चीजें सीखनी है तो अगर just one piece of advice that you have learned from your experience if you were to give us so what would that be?
Yeah. Your advice I'm basically mimicking from a senior manager at Teradata. So what he suggested, this was like I guess our first week at Teradata. What he suggested was to follow a T shape in terms of how you go about learning things. So what do I mean by a T shape? So you assume there's a line, a T. So this is what a T looks like. So this line represents the breadth of knowledge that you've acquired. So essentially, if we're talking about machine learning specifically, so the breadth would represent natural language processing, the breadth would represent computer vision, text processing, etc. All of these things you need to have a basic understanding of. So this is your breadth. So you're covering all of these different fields within machine learning. Now comes the bottom part. So basically the other Dundee. This one focuses on a specific field. So while you do maintain a breadth of knowledge, you need to identify a field that you are passionate about, a field that you are willing to put in hours and hours of work, hours and hours of studying, hours and hours of sort of building projects. And that would be the field that would complete the T that you have. So my advice would be to sort of follow this framework where you focus where you sort of initially focus on covering all aspects of machine learning and deep learning, or at least the major ones, and then you sort of single out a particular field that you're most interested in.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting, and I think आपकी personal journey भी is an example of that. कि आपने पहले, you were a data scientist, then you sort of progressed more towards ML, and now you're specifically working in that domain. और आप उसके अंदर काम ज़्यादा कर रहे हैं. So I think it's like a prime example for everyone who's right now listening to you and to your journey. और अभी तक आपने जितनी भी चीजें cover की हैं. So I think that really, really helps everyone. I think I have also learned a lot of things. Thank you so much, Fahad, for being with us. I think आपने बहुत valuable चीजें share की हैं. And thank you so much for making Pakistani proud as well. Whenever we talk to people who are from Pakistan and now they're working internationally, it's also very validating for us because you're paving that way for future generations, people who are looking up to you. आपको I think लोग LinkedIn पे भी follow करते हैं, तब आप उधर भी बात करते हैं या in like such platforms at Atom Camp, so that's very important. और हमारे ज़माने में like when I say हमारे ज़माना 2-3 साल पहले की बात है, but still तब इतनी opportunities नहीं होती थी, अब ज़्यादा आ गई हैं. So I would encourage everyone to reach out to people like you to come to us, and if they need any help, or again, जब आपने resources की बात की, तो please look for resources. We never really stop people from learning. Udemy, Coursera, there are multiple opportunities, online platforms, resources that you can go to and learn things. But again, if you prefer community, if you want more help in terms of mentorship, placement, work, interacting more with industry experts, people who are already working in the industry, and they also have very industry relevant experience. और आप भी उधर जाना चाहते हैं, तो you can also come to Atom Camp. We provide a lot of trainings, courses, boot camps, info sessions as well, conversation, community building. हमारे book hours भी होते हैं, तो आप बस you can also join us. Write us an email, shoot us a DM. We're more than happy to help you and guide you. और इस तरह की conversation like people like Fahad के साथ arrange करने का भी सबसे main purpose और agenda यही होता है, to inspire you, to guide you, and to tell you that there's so many opportunities. AI के आने से किसी की job खत्म नहीं हो रही. It's just that कि आपको AI के साथ compete करना है, अपना skill set improve करना है, और आपको चीजें सीखनी है. And while we're talking about AI, Atom Camp is also launching a boot camp with Nust as well in AI specifically. So if you're interested in that, would like to learn, so आप please हमारी website check out कर सकते हैं. If curriculum आपको exciting लगता है, तो please, and if there are any questions, you can ask us. Thank you so much for joining us over the weekend. I think we had like a good number of audience as well today, so I'm very happy about that. We're not Fahad से हमने 1 घंटा ही commit किया था, so we're not going to take any more of his time, and he's been very generous with it. Thank you so much, Fahad. It was like an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure having you and talking to you.
Thank you. It was great getting a chance to share all of my experiences.
Thank you so much. आपने बहुत सारी tips किए हैं, and I am personally going to share it with a lot of people कि they should come to it, and it's a great resource. Very happy that we managed to create this. So thank you so much, Fahad. Not going to keep you up. Please अपना weekend enjoy करिए. बाकी सब हमारी audience ने भी enjoy किया है. Please go have a nice weekend, and please never stop learning is where I would like to conclude. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.